Hi guys, so we're going to be explaining to you the COMPS assessment, which is the clinical observation of motor and postural skills. The COMPS is a norm reference screening tool using an observational method. It uses a bottom-up approach to test different components of motor control. And an OT could use this to mark the presence or absence of motor issues with a postural component based on 6 motor performance items developed by AIRS. Impairments can affect ADLs, social participation, play, leisure, and education. This typically would take about 15 minutes to complete, and you would use this assessment on a child that is 5 to 15 years old. So the first item on the assessment is slow movements. It measures the ability to move slowly, smoothly, and symmetrically, and it indicates cerebellar function. This is normally performed within 6 seconds and provides a 3-point scoring system broken down into 3 categories of symmetry, quality of performance, and speed. The second item on the assessment is rapid forearm rotation, and this measures the number of forearm rotations accurately completed in a 10-second time period, and this indicates cerebellar vestibular integrity. And this skill normally matures in children around 7 to 8 years old. So to score the first item on the assessment, it's broken down into the outward and inward movements, of symmetry, quality of performance, and speed, and you would score each item from 0 to 2 based on how they perform.
This is a demonstration of the first item called slow movements. I am going to show you what I want you to do. You watch me first, then it will be your turn. I am slowly moving my arms straight out, then I am slowly moving them back in. Now you try it. That was much too fast. Can you do it again more slowly? Good job.
To score the second item on the assessment, you would count the number of rotations that the right hand did, the left hand did, and then both of them at the same time. And depending on what this number is, you would look down at the table below and count whether they had 9 or more rotations in 10 seconds, which would give them a score of 4, 4 to 8 rotations in 10 seconds, which would give them a score of 3, 1 to 3 rotations in 10 seconds, which would give them a score of 2, and then if they were unable to complete the task, they would get a score of 1, and then you would add all of those numbers up, and the total would be out of 12. The third item on the assessment is finger to nose touching. This action is done continuously between the eyes open and eyes closed sequences to facilitate proprioceptive mechanisms of motor control. It measures cerebellar coordination, and by 7 years old, a child shouldn't be missing contact with either the nose or the finger more than once. The fourth item on the assessment is prone extension posture, and this measures the ability to assume and maintain an arched back position against gravity. This is theorized to be related to vestibular proprioceptive processing dysfunction. So to score this third item on the assessment, it might look a little bit confusing, but it's pretty simple. So the columns are broken down into right eye open, right eye closed, left eye open, and left eye closed, and then the rows are broken down into moving arm, extended arm, the force of the touch, and missed contact if there was any. So you would score this by looking at the descriptions on the right, seeing what they did or didn't do, and circling what number corresponds to that description. And then at the bottom, you would total up all the scores of the lowest score for each column, and then add all of those scores up and total it out of 12.
This is a demonstration of the third item, which is finger to nose touching, and you will need a stopwatch set to 10 seconds for each of the 2 sequences. Okay, so I'm going to hold this arm straight out in front of me, finger to the ceiling, and touch the tip of my finger and then the tip of my nose with my other hand. I touch them carefully and lightly. It is more important to be careful than to be fast. Then I will close my eyes and keep going. Okay? So you show me now. Okay, so I'm going to start, and you can keep your eyes open and keep going until I tell you to stop. Okay? Go. close your eyes and do it again. Okay, go. Okay, good job. So for prone extension, you have 6 categories based on whether they assume the position of the head, upper trunk, thighs, and knees, and then the last section is how they maintain the position overall in the first 15 seconds. So those are all scored 0 to 2, so the total is added up out of 12. And then you also have a quality score and duration score that are out of 3, and those are explained to the left of those boxes.
The fifth item on the assessment is ATNR and postural stability. This measures the degree of inhibition of the asymmetric tonic neck reflex in the quadruped. Developers of the COMPS designed a measurement tool to accurately measure the degree of elbow flexion, so this item is useful in identifying children who lacked postural stability to maintain a static quadruped position without locking their elbows or using an excessively wide base of support, regardless of the head's position. And then the last item on the assessment is the supine flex posture, and this measures the ability to assume and maintain a flexed posture in the supine position. It provides an objective scoring criteria for each body segment in addition to the ability to maintain posture over time. This posture is normally associated with somatodyspraxia, and the item was developed to be graded in a fashion that's similar to the prone extension posture.
For the ATNR item, the therapist looks at elbow flexion during head rotation. So the therapist will rotate the head of the child 8 times from left to right and score each of those times from 0 to 3 based on the descriptions above. All of the right side rotations will be out of 12 as well as the left side rotations. So when you add them up and divide it by 2, the total will also be out of 12. Lastly, supine flexion is designed to be scored in the same way as prone extension, which was explained a few slides back, with a total score, quality score, and duration score. So the COMPS results don't return normative data for age equivalence, but they have adequate reliability and construct validity, and they discriminate well between children with and without motor problems. For this assessment, you need the manual that includes pictures and instructions for each item, including how to weigh the scores, the record forms, including a score form for all ages, including point scores, 2 joint measurement tools to measure ATNR, and a floor mat, 2 chairs, and a stopwatch. For administration of the assessment, the last 3 tasks must be performed in order, and it's recommended that all 6 are performed in order. You are supposed to use the standardized methods and exact wording written in bold. You can perform the task first and then instruct the child to imitate, using verbal and physical cues but without allowing practice beforehand. A score less than 0 means there's a problem with motor or postural skills, and a score greater than 0 indicates normal functioning. Each component gives you a raw score calculated by its own scoring method. Each score is converted to a weighted score using the norm reference chart. Raw scores of all items are added together, and then the adjustment, which is found under each norm chart, is subtracted from the total, giving you a weighted total score. To calculate the final score, you transfer the scores from items 1 through 6 into this column, and then you look at the tables on pages 20 to 22 and fill out the weighted score as well as the adjustments. When you add these together, you get a total weighted score, which will indicate if there's problems in motor postural skills or normal functioning. Biases for the assessment include not taking into consideration children who have neurological or neuromotor problems like CP or epilepsy. It's also not meant to measure change in motor function over time. Language barriers could be an issue during prompting, and factors that could affect the child's performance like stress and hunger could be related to their socioeconomic status.